Desi here. I just wanted to say that I had COVID when we recorded this episode, so excuse my voice. I also forgot to record the first couple seconds of the podcast, so for introduction's sake, we're the Pinup Pumpkins Horror Podcast. I'm Desi, obviously, and I'm there with my co-host Ruby. Okay, enjoy.
And today we are going to be talking about Barbarian. Take it away, Desi.
All right. So Barbarian was released September of this year and was directed by Zach Cregger? Not positive. It's okay. It had a budget of about $4 to $4.5 billion. I saw a couple different I think million is more correct. Billion sounds crazy. I think I typed wrong.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So I was about to say not really that much, but like in terms of newer movies, I feel like $4 to $4.5 million is still pretty reasonable. So this movie, a general summary is arriving late in Detroit one night, a woman discovers that her Airbnb has been double booked, and against her better judgment, she stays the night. And what follows is more than either of them bargained for. Some notable actors, we have Bill Skarsgard, who we know recently from It Chapters 1 and 2, which I think for me gives some like preconceptions about what his character is going to be like, and
Of
after
course, yes.
and after listening to some interviews, the director kind of agreed, but those weren't necessarily the intentions behind casting him. We also have Justin Long, who's been in a billion things, but I feel like I haven't seen him in horror for quite a bit. He was in
Jeepers
Creepers,
Creepers?
yeah,
Yeah.
Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2, which I'll mention something later, which I think is interesting. And then we have the lead actress, Georgina Campbell, which I looked her up on IMDb, and she seems to have done mostly TV before this, so nothing I'd ever seen, but I think she did a great job, so I hope I see her in more horror movies.
Me too. I really liked her.
Yeah.
As like the main character.
Definitely.
Of the film.
I think she did a very good job. Just for people listening later, I want to stress that this is going to be super spoiler heavy. We're going to talk about anything and everything in this movie. And also, like, I don't want anything to get spoiled, because if you get spoiled, I feel like the experience of this movie is not the same as it is without it.
That's for sure.
And also what we're talking about might not make sense. So yeah.
That's true. Yep. And with that warning, I would also kind of throw in like a trigger warning as well, just because we're going to be talking about like heavier stuff later on. We'll try to bring up like when we are going to, but it's just kind of, good to put that out there.
For sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep. Cool. All right. So getting straight into the spoiler parts, let's talk about our first, your first thoughts of the movie, I guess.
You want to go first?
Sure. So I thought that the movie did a really good job with the scenery and setting up suspense. When I first heard that it was going to be about an Airbnb, which that's pretty much all I went in knowing about it, was okay, something where this girl goes to an Airbnb, right? I didn't know it was double booked or anything like that. So I was already kind of making stories up in my head of how it could go. And then immediately I was oh, okay, it's double booked. That's not even a starting place for what I had in mind. But the movie does a really good job of subverting all of your expectations. So it will build up Keith, for example. So like you said, he has played the it roles and has that vibe. So you really want to trust Keith, but at the same time you're oh no, this man, he set this up. He's not actually somebody who is there at the Airbnb. At first I thought he owned the Airbnb.
I thought the exact same thing. So
yeah.
So just in case you are listening to this with haven't not seen it, which don't do that, but anyway. So Keith is the guy that he's already there when she
Hmm.
gets to the Airbnb, and he's like, "Oh, these assholes, they messed this up. We'll come in, we'll figure it out. We'll stick it to them." But I also had the same thoughts. I was like, I think that you're the property manager and you're just being really super weird right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, so I think Tess, who is the main character, like I think she also doesn't really know either, and
Yeah.
she's trying to gauge it, and the audience is trying to gauge it. Um, and we're both like, okay, this man is like really awkward. Like he's kind of trying to stress too much of the fact that he's safe, which makes him
Yeah.
like makes me
He's the
puts my red flags up more. You know what I
he's the
mean?
where's
Like
my hug guy at school.
that's perfect explanation. But yeah, so like I thought he had done this before, like, he's had people rent before and he just has things ready where he's like, okay, let's go. Like I didn't think it was someone random from the street who just like broke in. I thought it was like, oh, he owns this and this is what he does. You
Yeah,
know what
it
I mean?
felt like it could have been like a calculated move to be doing
Hmm.
this to this woman.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
it just does a really good job at subverting like subverting your expectations.
Hmm.
I don't know if you want to go into that or like you had
Yeah,
different thoughts.
I've thought the same thing because you're
Hmm.
so suspicious of him, and I feel like you're in the same place as the main character where you're like, I don't really know about this, and he's offering her tea, and she's like, I'm not drinking that, which like, same girl, I wouldn't even have gone in the house, so that's a good decision.
Yep.
And then he's offering her wine, and she's like, no, which no.
Hmm.
And then he kind of like notices that she's not comfortable, and we find out that he's like a normal guy, like
Hmm.
not trying to normal guy. I don't know, that's nothing, but like not trying to do
I'm
bad
not a
things.
murderous
Yeah,
like
not a
you
murderer.
know person.
um, but he very is like trying to convince her, like, hey, I'm good. I'll pour this wine in front of you so you know that I don't do anything. I'll make this tea in front of you so you can see me not do anything.
Yeah.
Like, I got you.
Yeah.
And then they start talking, and it turns into this, like, cute little, like, rom com for the night. And you're
Hmm.
like, oh, so cute. Oh, they're gonna have such a fun time. And then you think, like, these are gonna be the two main characters for the rest of the movie.
Hmm.
No.
Wrong.
No.
So on the one hand, like I did think it was like, people have described it as like meet cute, but like the whole entire time I'm like, no, he's gonna murder
Oh,
her.
for
So like
sure.
so I was just really angry, like, oh my gosh, this feels really realistic to like how you would get to know someone and she's actually starting to like let her guard down and like him as a person and like that's when he's gonna get her, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
yeah.
I was gonna be very upset if that happened because I wanted her to be able to kind of trust the red flags that she was getting
Yeah.
and then like I wanted her to be able to trust her own judgment and emotions about the situation.
Hmm.
And, you know, she even when she went to her interview and the the person who was interviewing her was like, this is not a great area. You know what I mean? Like she still is like, it's okay, like I kind of trust myself. But I think we should also talk about like the horror movie logic because that is like
Yeah.
all over
No.
this movie. And I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fun. It was fun to watch. Like I was questioning, oh, what's gonna happen next?
Hmm.
And most of the time with horror movies, like, you're like, oh, okay, I know how this is gonna end, but let me just wait it out and see anyways. But this one I was like really didn't know where it was
Yeah,
going.
same. I thought, the whole beginning portion, I'm like, it's gonna be bad. He's gonna be the guy. Like, people keep saying it's
Mhm.
unexpected, but like, I'm smarter than this movie, whatever.
Yeah.
Or like, I was trying to come up with things where people are like, this is unexpected. I'm like, is she gonna be the bad one? Maybe, I
Hmm.
don't know. But then like,
Hmm.
none of that, of course, happened. But like, yeah, I would not walk in there at all. No
No,
way. No way.
no.
Like, I know she had limited options, like with the hotels and stuff, but I would have just maybe
Hmm.
driven out of town a little bit.
Yeah, I know,
Like,
right?
I
Like,
don't need to stay like inside of like the city. You can just like
no.
maybe go 20 minutes away and find somewhere possibly.
Right.
But then also she like takes a picture of his license, but like presumably does nothing with that. And like, I would be Googling that shit immediately. Like, who is
Yeah.
this man? Like, because he like says like, I'm part of this like jazz collective and we're looking for like housing for our like artists or something like that. And she's like,
Right.
oh wow, I've heard of that. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. I
Yeah,
don't know who
double
he
check it.
is. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. Like, so I just kind of assumed, even though they didn't show it, I just
that
kind
she
of
looked it up.
assumed that he looked it up,
True.
or like maybe she would in a little bit or something. Um, I so I've only seen the movie once, and it
Yeah,
was in
same.
theater, so I can't exactly remember if that happened. But once he says like he is part of that group, I'm like, likely, sure.
Right. The whole time I'm
But
like, this doesn't make me feel better.
so I believe that he was, but then like so I was sitting like with my best friend watching the movie, and I was like whispering to her like, all of these like theories that I had, and like she was telling me all the theories that she had. And one of them I remember I was like, you know, even though he's like popular or well known, like
He
he
could
has this
still
like
be
dark
bad.
evil side that he like, that he gets away with it.
It's his
And
Hannah
I'm like,
Montana
that's
life.
yeah. I was like, that's why he owns so many properties and is looking out properties, because he has like this whole, I don't know, I just went wild with it. But um I liked that this movie like made you think of a billion different kind of theories
Mm-hmm.
without giving you an answer. Um I know not everyone really likes that, but I did.
Oh,
I
I
thought it
love
was really
that.
fun.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um but some critiques that I've heard of the movie, like of all the critiques, like it's, oh, I wouldn't have done that, and like that's very prevalent in the film, and I can't ignore it. So
Yeah.
because I probably wouldn't have gone in either. I'd try to find a different hotel. Um, and just like other stuff, like Keith's whole, like, why would he, if somebody comes up to you and is like, there's a really sketchy room in the basement with a camcorder and some blood,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like distrust her and
Yeah.
be like, "You're overreacting. Let me go downstairs and check for
And
myself." I'm gonna be like, "I'm gonna take your word for it, and let's just run the hell out of here."
very
You know what I
true.
mean? Like,
Very true. And they already stayed like the first night. Like, we're in daytime now. Let's figure this out now. Like, we can
yeah,
leave. Also,
yeah,
even if he was to go down there, this was one thing that I was thinking where she was like, "Hey, there's a room down there with a camera and a bed, right?" And he goes down, he's like, "I'm going to go check it out." And then he finds like an underground tunnel system, and he, not in his brain, he's not like, "Oh, this is clearly not what she was talking about." Like, dude, she didn't say there's a whole underground tunnel system. Maybe call
hmm
her and be like, "Hey, also there's more weird shit." Like,
So, I like how this movie kind of like lets you fill in the gaps,
mm-hmm.
because I don't think we're actually shown him, right? We go
Right.
back to her,
Yeah.
and he's just not there anymore. So
True.
you could fill in the gaps one way of like, okay, he went farther, or somebody snatched him in, which is how I
True.
thought of
I
it.
didn't think
I
about
thought
that.
that like, because he's saying help, like he had
Oh.
to have come in contact with her at some point, right? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe she was, I don't know, it was daytime, so, and she usually comes out at night, but
Yeah, but that
for
does
some
make
reason,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
Cause
It
yeah,
depends how you look at it, I think.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Does make sense.
Yeah.
I didn't
Just
think about
thoughts.
that. No, but that makes things make more sense because it would, if she was like down there the second time and was like, "Thank you," like
Mhm.
they wouldn't have had
Right.
time to say anything.
right. And as soon as she, like, opened the door and saw that there was more, like, even though she says nope in the like, she still does it.
Yeah.
And obviously, we wouldn't have a horror movie if she didn't do those things,
Right.
and, like, so to some extent, I'm like, "Okay, people, it's a horror movie, come on,
Yeah,
it's
and
fine."
also thinking like now that she's built up a rapport with this guy, she like cares about his life at least in some way, where she's like
Yeah,
not just gonna leave him there.
right.
So, yeah.
Y yeah. And throughout the film, it's kind of shown that she is a caring person
Mhm.
towards not even just, the Keith, who she knows sort of now or is an acquaintance with, but, some random guy that she met briefly who is a total asshole.
Yeah, total butthead. Worst guy. Just the worst. Anyway, that's
He's
Justin
the
Long.
worst.
Just the worst guy ever. Ugh.
Justin Long's not the worst guy, but AJ,
Well,
who he
yeah, yeah,
plays,
yeah. Yes. Well, I don't know anything about Justin Long, but yeah. His
yeah, yeah,
character. His character.
yes, yeah,
But yeah, I thought that smash cut too, where so she goes down there and she's looking for Keith. They're in this tunnel system. There's cages down there. Like it's obviously a very bad scene. Something really bad is happening down there. You don't really know what. And he finds her and is like, "We gotta go. There's like something else with us." And they don't leave in time. And something comes up and smashes Keith's head against the wall into lots of
yep,
nasty pieces. So then there's just a
yep,
jump cut to AJ in his car just singing along on the mountain.
yes.
And I was kind of
Before
just
we,
like, what?
yeah, right. I know. Like, so the part where there, she's in the tunnel and she's looking for Keith, and Keith enters by crawling, and I'm like,
Yes.
oh hell no! But me and my best friend literally screamed in the theater. I think we were the only ones. I don't even know, but I think I screamed and then she screamed and then we were both screaming. But the crawling, I was like, no, 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 no. And then I'm still at that point, oh no, Keith's the bad guy. Like he's still luring
Oh,
her or
yeah.
whatever. And then he gets his head smashed. And that is the moment that you know that he's not the bad guy. And
Mm-hmm.
then directly after that, you have to it jumps to something else. So it forces you to kind of process what the heck you just watched. And you're like, no, not
You're right.
Keith.
You're like, he deserved
He was
more.
good after
He
all.
was just
So
awkward.
sad. He was just a awkward little guy, you know?
Trying to make a friend in a weird situation.
Um, poor Keith.
Rip
Poor
Keith.
Keith.
You will be
Yeah,
missed.
rip. But yes, it does jump to that, and there's a very long pause as well. So I remember we were like, "Is that the end?"
Oh,
You know what I mean? We're
uh-huh.
like, "Was that the end of the movie?" I was like, that was short. Like I wasn't expecting that, truly.
Yeah.
But then it does really cut to a different scene, and it feels like a whole new movie.
Yeah, me and my husband were in the theater alone. It was just us in there. And that happened, and I looked at him and I was like, what? What? Huh? And then when the scene started, when it's like the next scene and he's like driving, I was like, is this before? After? Who is this guy? What is this?
I was just kind of vibing though. I was like, with his music, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, okay,
I'm
we're
like, ah,
vibing.
he's
All
fun, and
right.
then he's not fun.
And I have no idea how it's gonna connect. If it's gonna connect,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Here we
is
go.
what happened to Tess? Who was that? What
Yeah,
was
and then
that?
you're left to think like, oh, did she get caught too? Because in your brain you're like, well,
Yeah,
obviously she's right there.
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly,
you're like, okay, I guess we're
exactly.
moving on.
Yep, yep. And surely we did. And did you want to give a brief kind of um blurb about AJ's character or anything
Yeah,
like that?
so AJ is like a TV movie star. He's an actor. He's famous. And he pretty much right after meeting him, he gets a call from his manager saying that he's going to be dropped from the show that he's on because he has been accused of sexually assaulting someone, which, like, we're gonna get into stuff now, I would say. Um, and he's
Yeah.
in complete disbelief about this, and yeah. He's basically going on this journey now, and he's like trying to save his reputation or whatever because he doesn't think that he did anything wrong. And I hate even like talking about it from like this angle because it sucks.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but essentially, he ends up going to Detroit to go home and like recoup, I think, and make some money back because he's losing money from everything that's going on, which like he should. Good. Um, but he owns this Airbnb and it's been rented out with a property management company, so he's going to go see it and maybe like take control of it so that he can get money from that property or sell that property or something. So that's how we end up with him getting into the fold of this story that
Yes.
we are familiar with now.
Yes. And we do know that he did it, right? Because he
Yes,
talks to
soon after, when he's in
Yeah.
Detroit, he's in the bar and he's
Yes.
talking to somebody, and like he did it.
Yeah.
Of course, he phrases it like in a
Yeah.
shitty way, but like he did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I just wanted to add that because
oh yeah,
like so
no, there's nothing ambiguous
speculation
about it.
yeah. Nope.
He's a bad
Nope.
person.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess where do we want to start with?
Yeah, so I want to go into this part is a little bit humorous just from like my perspective.
Uh-huh.
He is in full on landlord mode and
Yeah.
he is just trying to get every little bit out of this property. He's pissed that people have left their stuff there because obviously Keith and Tess's stuff is still there. It's been there for a couple of weeks, we learned, because nobody's come in. It hasn't been rented out to anybody else. He's mad. He's like trying to figure this out. He's staying there, and then he's like, I'm gonna measure this place and see what I can list it for. And he starts measuring everything, and then he notices the basement. He goes down to the basement. He sees the like creepy room with the camera in the bed. Nothing. It doesn't occur to him that that's an issue.
Measures it.
Then he finds the tunnels, still no problem down there. He just goes ahead and measures the tunnels, and he is psyched as fuck that there's like so
Yes.
much room. He's like, I'm gonna list all these square feet on here. They don't have to be livable. It's fine. We're gonna list it. He like does not care about anything that he's seeing in front of him, which are all clearly like not good things.
Yes. Right. Like you would expect like a human to look at that and be like, that is not
Something's
right.
wrong with this,
like,
but he is in full on like, I do not care about any of this. I don't care what these people have to live with. I just want to sell it for as much money as possible, which is like
right. And like he's so excited, like he has no sense of danger whatsoever either, which is like I think a really good point to one of the themes that we're gonna talk about, and that's like how men approach the world. Or I should say like cis men. And then how
pretty much everybody else,
other people, I would say like people who have been socialized as a woman or just like, gender non-conforming or anything like that, like, there's a different sense of
the world is a much
safety
more
that's
dangerous
instilled.
place for people who are not cis men.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can like talk about that a little bit. Where like I had looked at an interview with the actors and the director, and there's a lot of times in this movie where there's like that juxtaposition of like just the perspective of Tess specifically, a woman, and then against a man, where like we see Tess versus Keith, like they have a discussion where she's like, if it was me that was here first, I would have never let you in. I wouldn't have even offered because I don't know you and I don't know what you're gonna do. And he's like, well, I wouldn't have thought of it like that. She's like, well, Which I feel like we've all experienced. You know people in your life that are like, "Oh, why don't you just go do this by yourself?" And it's like, "Cuz I can't do that. I don't
Right.
feel safe doing that." And you
Right.
won't understand that. But with Tess and AJ, the director said, I'm gonna like quote paraphrase a little bit, but he was like, Tess and AJ are two sides of some same coin. Tess is a woman who goes into this deadly situation. She's identifying threats, and her brain is working overtime to determine if she's in danger or not. And AJ is a
Mhm.
man that goes into the same situation. He's clearly in danger. He's caused wreckage himself and he's oblivious to it. And he's just kind of blindly cruising through. So it's a
Right.
comment on the mental energy that women have to exert to protect themselves that men don't.
Yes. Ow. Sorry.
You're
I
good. You're
just
okay.
um yeah, so I also watched an interview um with the director as well, and he said that he based the movie on a book that he read.
Oh, interesting.
Um yeah, and it talks about those like little red flags that he says women pick up on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and he wanted to he wrote a story because he wanted to incorporate all those little red flags into one scene like as much as possible.
Yeah.
Which is like what happened with Keith, basically. Like
Mm-hmm.
small little so making tea when she didn't ask and blah blah blah, you know. But I liked that because I felt like even though this was written and directed by a man,
Mm-hmm.
it felt kind of real to experiences that I've gone
Yeah.
through, that I know other people have gone through. Like I could sit here and talk all day about creepy
Oh,
stories
for sure.
about just,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
we talked
whatever.
about something that happened to me like 3 weeks ago, and it's
Yeah.
just like normal life. You can't let your guard down, unfortunately, because people
Hmm.
just don't let you.
Yeah. I know it's the worst,
And
but
it's like sad when like for like you for me, okay, I'll just say it. I had an experience
okay.
where I was followed by a man to my car in a parking
Hmm.
garage, and that was
Hmm.
really scary. It was fine. I ran
Yeah.
out. We're good. But, immediately my thing is like, why do I have to have a man walk with me to my car, like somebody I work with? Because that's what everybody's first thing is like, oh, just have somebody walk with you to your car. I'm like, I shouldn't have to do that. Like,
Yeah.
I should just be able to go to my car. I'm like leaving my job.
Right.
So it's
Right.
just
You
like
don't want to think about
everyday
that.
experiences that are like suddenly so scary for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. There was one I also know someone else who had a man follow her to her car as well, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, guys," like,
Yeah.
and like you said, we shouldn't have to be afraid of being alone,
Hmm.
but like 9 times out of 10, maybe even 10 times out of 10, I feel like every single person who's not a cis man has had an experience like this or
Hmm.
can tell you an experience like that. And not just one, like
Yeah.
multiple, multiple, multiple.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't want to overgeneralize because I don't have like actual statistics or anything, but like just in my experience,
Yeah. If it
that
hasn't
happens.
happened to
And
you, you've heard it of happening to somebody that you
yes,
know.
exactly.
Hmm.
Right. Yep. Yep. There was one. This is a little tangent, but like,
That's fine.
um, I was driving home and I had my window down. I like to have my window down because like I like to listen to music and all this stuff.
Hmm.
And there's like a car that pulls up next to me, and like I accidentally like catch a face of someone. I'm like, oh, okay, we accidentally made eye contact or whatever because they're sitting in the passenger side. And but I'm just like, okay, don't look, don't look. But I can just feel this energy of this
Ah.
person staring at me.
Oh.
And like he's staring for like it feels like forever. And like
Oh
like
no.
this.
No,
Like
thank you.
and like I finally look over and I'm like, is this like really happening, you know, right now? And then he's like, and
Ugh.
I'm like, oh my God.
Ugh.
I hate it. I
And
hate
you're
it.
and in your brain you're just like, why? For what? What was
Yeah.
this gonna get you?
Yeah.
Like, I've had a similar thing. I was mopping the floor at work one time. We're just talking about life now, whatever. I was mopping the floor at work one time, and a guy came up to me and looked in the window and started making kissy faces at me. And I was like, what? And then my coworker was like, go to this guy.
Hmm.
And he, like, wouldn't go. So I turned around and I flipped him off and I told him to fuck off. And then he flipped me off back. I'm like, sir, what did you think was going to happen from this interaction? Am I going to walk out there and leave with you? Literally, what is the point of this? You're just making me
Does that ever
uncomfortable.
work?
Right. And when has
Has
this
that
ever
ever
gone
worked?
well for you? I was so shook. I was like so angry because I'm like, how are you going to flip
Yeah.
me off? You're like in my
Yes.
business.
Right.
Crazy.
But then that's the thing, is like, you're at work, I'm driving home. These are
Right.
literally situations where I should not have to feel scared, because like right after that, I'm driving home and I'm like, oh my god, is he following me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just petrified. You know what I mean? I'm scared. I immediately call my friend because I'm like, I don't want to be alone or feel alone. But like, I'm literally just driving, and I shouldn't have to feel that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Anyways.
Yeah. Anyway.
Never do that. Don't be a bad person.
Make better choices, friends.
Make better choices, please, people. But yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho, so
Where were we at?
let
was
us know
cathartic.
in the comments, even though this isn't YouTube, but when we post on the YouTube, feel free to share your terrible experiences with men.
Yeah.
Sorry, not
Let's see.
to overgeneralize, but yeah.
Okay, so where are we at now? So let's just get to eventually AJ goes down to the tunnels and he is caught, let's say,
Yes.
by the same person. I'm just gonna say person because I feel very uncomfortable saying like creature or thing or monster in this context.
So she's called the mother, I think.
Okay,
That's what
I
I've been
like that.
calling her.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
All right, so
The
the
mother.
mother comes and catches him, and well, he's captured because she like chases him into a trap, basically. And
Yeah.
our BFF Tess is there. Crazy, exciting. I was so excited to see her. I was like, yes, yes.
She's alive.
Yeah, but
It's full circle.
yeah,
But I didn't realize it had been 2 weeks.
yeah.
And luckily it had only been 2 weeks, but sheesh. Yeah. Yeah. So Tess is there, and Mama, I'm gonna call her, puts like a little bottle down into the cage and is like, drink up, sweeties. And, and this, like, AJ is like, absolutely not. Like, he's freaking out, and she's just like, just drink the fucking bottle. Just drink it. Just drink it.
She's like, literally,
this
just
is
do it,
like, I've been
dude.
here. I've survived for all this time. And he doesn't.
Right, of course not, because he doesn't listen to anybody.
Nope. So she opens the cage and snatches him up. I can't remember what exactly happened, but I know she takes him to the other room where there's a screen with
Yeah.
a breastfeeding video.
Yeah.
And since the cage is open, Tess is able to climb out and leave, or like try to find her way through the tunnels. And something I find interesting is that when AJ's taken to this other room, like, the mother is trying to breastfeed him, and he obviously doesn't want to.
Yeah.
And I think that juxtaposes really well with the fact that, like, he's done things to people that they don't want, but he doesn't see the bad in it. But now that it's happening to him, he doesn't like it. You know what I mean? Anyways, I thought that was like,
I agree,
a very interesting thing to put in the movie, but let's see,
Tess,
what else
is this when Tess like makes it out
of the
tunnels? Yeah, for the
I think
first
so.
time.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes, I
she just barely makes it out, and
Yeah.
runs into this guy that had scared her earlier by trying to tell her not to go in the house. It was just a guy that was running down the street, and she was like, "Oh shit, bye."
Mhm.
She went in
Mhm.
and she runs into him, and at first she's scared, and he's like, "No, like I know she's there. We have to go, or she's gonna come
Right.
get you."
Right. Right. Right.
And Tess is like, "Fuck this! I'm gonna go find the police." And of course, like that doesn't work. They don't believe her. They don't want to have anything to do with her situation. They do something that I hate, which is assume that she is high or taking something,
Mhm.
and so they automatically disregard her as if people don't have problems regardless of like what's going on in their life. So,
Right.
but anyway, she finds no help with them, of course.
Mhm.
So she's like, I gotta go back and help this guy. I don't know him, but I gotta
Mhm.
help him. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a little on timelines now. I'm not exactly sure. So
Okay.
if you want to take it, you may.
So I know also like during this time when that all is happening, AJ found another room
Mm-hmm.
with the father there,
That's
which we
right.
should definitely talk about because there's
Yes.
another cut scene after AJ ends up in the tunnel that goes back to what was the time period?
19. I'm going to say the 70s. Or that would have been like
Yeah,
50 years ago, right? So that seems good.
yeah, yeah. I think it was 70s as well. But basically, we get kind of more of a backstory history of why the house is like the way it is.
Yeah.
um, and we see this man who literally he owns the house and he lives there, but he there's a woman that comes out of the grocery store and he literally stalks her and drives home and follows her. And you guys wonder why
We're
this
afraid
is
of this.
instilled into us
Yeah.
because like there's an example of like, okay, our worst fear is that, and it's happening to this woman,
Yeah.
right? Anyway, so he follows her home, then puts on an electrician outfit, I think, and like
Yeah.
comes inside um and goes into the bathroom and unlocks the door. And we don't get any, scenes from here to there, but we know what happens. He's going to break in, he's going to take her, abduct her, whatever. And he like takes his victims back to his room in his basement, I guess, like record stuff. And AJ finds a whole bunch of tapes. One of them, okay, this is super funny and doesn't have anything to do with anything. But so one of the names is like Ruby.
Oh no. Oh no.
And then when we were in theater, one of our friends' sister was there. So we're like, hey, what's up? Um and and she has red hair and there's like a videotape that says like gas station redhead. So
Oh no.
after the movie was like, hey, gas station redhead. And there was like another person and he was like, do you guys know each other? And I'm like, yes, yes, I'm not gonna just read that at someone. Um, but it was really funny. Anyways.
But
Anyway, so AJ, yeah,
this guy also, we know that this isn't the first time because he's at the grocery store because he's buying things for a home birth,
yeah,
like diapers and plastic sheeting. And when he gets home, there's clearly already things happening before he abducts this other woman. So he's like
yes.
a repeat offender of these like really heinous acts.
Right, right. And he has like hundreds of videos to prove it
Yeah.
too. So when AJ stumbles upon this collection, he's in the room with him, right? But there's like a little TV and a whole bunch of VHS tapes, all labeled with like their names or like descriptors or whatever. And we don't see what happened to the videotapes, but we see AJ's reaction. And he's like, oh my God, like you're horrible. How could you do this? Which is so interesting
Mm-hmm.
because again, AJ is kind of so far removed with the actions that he's doing that he he can recognize that I forget the man's
I
name.
think it might be
Um,
Frank, question mark?
okay, we're gonna call him Frank.
Yes, it
Sure.
is. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, he sees like Frank's doings as bad, but then he again can't put the pieces together and kind of see
He
that.
can't fathom the fact that he might be a bad person who's done things to people that are unforgivable.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. Um, sorry, I was just thinking,
You're
because
okay.
the director, he said that he put his like AJ's character to a moral kind of test and he failed, obviously. Um, and you and I talked about this a little bit, but we're both glad that he did fail, right?
Yeah.
Um, because if he were to have been like, oh, this narrative of I'm a good guy, but I just have done some bad things or like made a mistake, um, I would have seen this movie completely differently and I wouldn't have liked it. You know what I mean?
Yep. I
Um,
was hoping so hard that it wasn't going to go there because for a little while it felt like, oh, this guy's going to get a redemption arc. I don't want that because the
right,
people who he's done things to don't get that arc. They don't get
right,
to be absolved of things that have happened to them.
right.
So,
Yeah. So I like the choice that he
yes.
like does not redeem himself. Because I feel like in other movies they would have tried to do that, and it
Yeah.
doesn't send a good message,
No.
in my opinion. So, but yeah, so I liked that. Anywho,
Let's see. Um, I do. I'm like looking over the plot summary here just to like remind myself. But it is mentioned here, and I think it's important to note too that the mother is really scared of the room that Frank is
oh,
in. She will not go in there. She will not go near it whatsoever.
yes,
Which
yes,
obviously we can tell why.
yeah. And the reason why is because I don't think we explicitly explain this yet, but basically, the mother is a baby of a baby of a baby of a baby of a baby
Yeah,
of someone that Frank has abducted, right?
yeah,
So, and I think his name's Andre, if I'm not mistaken,
I think
the
so.
the man that Tess runs into outside and takes them to the water tower. Um, he says, that that's what happens. Like she is what happens when you breed a baby of a baby of a baby.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess now knowing, AJ and Frank's character, I kind of want to talk about, the name of the film and the mother character in more depth, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any initial thoughts?
No, you can go. I'm just trying not to
Okay.
sneeze. I'm just trying not to sneeze. You're okay.
Kerchow. No.
Yeah. Pull a real quick Lightning McQueen on you.
Yes. Okay, so basically, um, so the movie is titled Barbarian, right? And when the director was asked like why he had this name, his answer was like, I had to title the script something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there wasn't like super, super big thought, but then as things progressed and the movie came to fruition, it kind of fit. Um, but I do think it's an interesting choice because the word barbarian has a lot of like things attached to it.
Negative connotations,
Yeah,
mostly.
basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And um so one of those connotations we think of is like not being socialized, right?
Mhm.
Or like being some kind of outcast or other or like
Not a
And
part
when
of civilized society.
exactly. But also that kind of translates into not colonized sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
basically like um people who colonize other people got away with a lot of things because they convinced others that, or like they saw ways of life of others as something that was barbaric or not civilized. Um, so there's already a whole bunch of harmful connotations there. And I think you can either see it two ways or you can see it both ways, which is kind of how I see it. But the like, who is the barbarian, right?
Right.
And you know, at first we're led to believe that the mother figure is this uncivilized character, right?
Right.
But I have a problem with that,
Oh,
right?
for sure. Of
Yeah. Yeah.
course. Can
Yeah.
you imagine like thinking by the end of this movie that like she is the problem and not any of the other
Mm.
characters?
I don't know, maybe some people watch it that way, and if they
Yeah.
do, like, I that's just a completely different
Yeah. I would implore
reading.
people to think about it in a different way.
Mhm.
Because like I said earlier, when you first see her, you're like, what is that? Like, what
Yeah.
is this creature? It's gonna be like a creature feature. And I was listening to a podcast, not about the movie, but just they had mentioned seeing the movie, and somebody said like,
Mhm.
oh, the monster movie Barbarian, and the other host was like, I don't want to say that. Like, let's not
Yeah.
call it that because it's not
Yeah.
that really.
Yeah. Yeah, and right, because like, I really appreciated you saying at the beginning, like, you know, I don't feel comfortable calling her a creature,
Yeah.
um, which is why we've come to the term the mother. But at the same time, she is set up to be so removed
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of like parts of her characteristics become a little bit like like not human. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
what I mean is like this super strength. Like you can kill her 3 times and she's not gonna die.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? So, and then also, I don't know that I like the message of like someone who is born out of incest, like, is barbaric.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, I don't know how I feel about
Yeah.
that message. Not saying, you know,
That that's the intention, but
yeah,
there is
yeah,
that feeling of like,
yeah, right. Like at the same time, it's kind of like it's not exactly her fault
right.
that she like of her
She
history.
was born in a horrible situation
Right.
because of the acts of a horrible person.
And that's what is barbaric, is
Yes.
like his actions and his repeated actions, that like if you want to look at her, let's say we look at her as like a metaphor momentarily, like a child of like a baby of a baby
Yeah.
of a baby. Um, you can interpret that as like all of his bad acts kind of morphed into this negative creature that kills or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also see it kind of more like generational
Mm-hmm.
abuse, I
Yeah,
guess.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So like one thing that he did caused a domino effect and it's now all like in one.
Right.
Does that make sense? I feel I
It's coalesced into this like
yeah.
giant thing that's happened
Mhm.
to someone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a multiple ways that you could look at it, but then again, I don't wanna look at the mother as, like, a metaphor, right? I wanna look at her as a character, as a human being, even though she's super strong and, like,
Right. And really,
whatever,
like, as we continue to go on, we'll talk about, like, they do go back to the water tower with this guy, which is somewhere that she's supposedly never gone. Smash cut to her jumping in and dragging this guy off. um, Tess and AJ race to the top of the water tower, and she's coming up, coming to get him. And
Mhm.
that makes so mad.
What
AJ,
happens, Desi?
AJ, in an effort to save himself, pushes Tess off the water tower to sacrifice her to the mother, and the
Can we
mother
also
goes down
he
with
also
her.
shot her before,
Oh
like,
yeah,
at
very
in the
true.
tunnel.
I forgot about that. He did, yeah, because he thought that the mother was coming back for him at one point, and he
Mm.
shot Tess because he didn't look where he was shooting, and just shot her. So she's already injured. He's not helping her get up the water tower to help her save herself. And then they do get to the top of the water tower, and he's like, sorry, and then pushes her off.
Yeah, and the audacity of this man because Tess literally like, escaped the
Yeah, she didn't
underground.
have to come back at all.
Nope, nope. She didn't even know if he was alive still, but she took that risk and that chance, and she was like, "Okay, if no one else is gonna do anything about the situation, I have to put it on
Mm-hmm.
myself to, like, go help this person." Okay.
Yeah, he's just sucks. Like, ugh, I hate him. He sucks so bad. But the mother does dive down with Tess.
Mhm,
AJ gets to the bottom, and it seems like the mother has died as a
mhm,
result of injuries from falling off a water tower. Tess
mhm,
somehow is alive. She's not doing great, but she's alive.
mhm,
And
mhm.
again, the audacity of this man. Um, he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You slipped. You fell. Like, I couldn't do anything about it." My guy, are you fucking kidding me? So,
You won't even
just like
take ownership.
no, he's like, I mean, he's gaslighting her for like
Yeah,
straight
yeah,
up, and she's
yeah.
like,
I'm
"Bro,
so done with this.
yeah." Um, but he gets what's deserved, I suppose, and he gets his eyes gouged out, which is why I thought it was funny that he's in Jeepers Creepers and his eyes are
Yeah,
out of there.
yep,
I don't know if that was a reference, but I think it is funny to bring
yeah,
up.
yep.
But yeah,
Get
and
those peepers.
yeah, he ain't got them anymore.
Nope.
But
Nope.
he's gone. And let's see. She has a connection with Tess because Tess has not directly. I don't know. She thinks that Tess is like her baby, and this whole time she
Mhm,
has kind of been treating Tess like she is her child. Um,
mhm,
and she kind of wants to bring Tess back, but she's being really gentle about it because she can tell that Tess is hurt and she doesn't want to hurt her.
mhm.
It really seems like she's like doesn't want to hurt
Yeah,
her anymore. And Tess is like, I can't go with you. I have
yeah,
to go. And
yeah,
she does shoot her, which
yes.
I I had feelings about. But the situation is what it is, and I don't know what
Tell me your
I
feelings.
don't know what I would have done there, but I felt
Mhm.
sad that that happened. And
Yeah.
like I feel like that's how you're supposed to feel, given
Mhm.
everything you find out. But at the beginning of the movie, you would never think like, oh, I would feel sad for this to happen to this character. But I was just like, I was really sad because I was like,
Yeah.
this is someone who has been put in a horrible situation, and she's just doing what she thinks is what she's supposed to do, and she's trying to take care of
Yeah.
this person. But like, obviously thinking about it, like that this can't happen. Like
Yeah.
she can't do this because obviously that's taking Tessa's agency away, and she has her life and everything else. And but it
Right.
was just like it was rough, and then the movie's done. Tess leaves.
Yeah. I know. I also felt really, really sad
Yeah.
for her as well. And I do agree that like we're supposed to feel that way. But at the same time, like what else
Right.
could
What would
Tess
have
have
been the
done?
alternative?
And also to be fair, like she did kill Key.
Right, and she is harming people, so Tess can't, let her keep doing that either. But
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
still do feel from that point of view where you're like, she doesn't
Hmm.
know any better.
Right.
Like,
Right.
not that
Exactly.
like you can just like kill people because you don't know any better, but like this situation warrants those feelings, I think.
Right. Exactly. I definitely agree and understand. Something I felt was interesting, and I don't know if this was on purpose. I feel like it is given kind of the themes of the movie,
Mhm.
but that the men are killed,
Mhm.
but Tess is saved.
Mhm.
I feel like that's a big point.
Yeah.
That you know, Frank, right?
Yeah.
Frank has instilled so much fear into the mother about maybe men in general. Um,
Yeah, she is a lot
because
less understanding or gentle of any of the men that
yeah,
she is with Tess.
yes, yeah, and I feel like that really kind of is attributed to like how like systemically like the patriarchy harms people.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I let's see if I had anything else to talk about her. Um, let's see.
Did you want to talk about the house?
The house.
The
Oh,
the English major outlook on the house?
okay. Okay, yes. So with that, those like feelings of kind of sadness towards her, there is a reference that I actually, being the English major that I am, didn't really see the connections to, but I guess like I could get there. So someone pointed out to me that there's a book that Tess pulls out of her suitcase, or maybe Keith pulls out. I don't know, but it's Jane Eyre. Oh no, AJ pulls it out because he's looking through her stuff. Sorry,
Mhm.
but it's Jane Eyre, and I was like, oh, cool, Jane Eyre. Love that book. Great. Like it's actually one of my favorite books
Mhm.
from high school. And but I didn't exactly see the connections until someone pointed out the woman in the attic. So in Jane Eyre, Mr. Rochester has a wife who is like severely mentally ill, right? And but he keeps her in the attic, locked up,
Hmm.
which obviously is not great for her,
No.
are gonna fix anything.
Cool move,
Um,
guy.
yeah, yeah. So there's like people are saying there's like references kind of to that, and the woman in the attic has become a trope. I feel,
Mhm.
or maybe not a trope isn't the correct word, but like a a device or like a common thing that happens in literature and movies.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so there's a connection to that. Um, I get it, but I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to connect. I feel like I would need someone to explain it a little bit better for
Mhm.
me. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
in terms of the house, so also English major, you can interpret the house as like the human mind or the psyche. So a lot of times in literature, people will talk about like the basement or the attic as being the unconscious
Mhm.
or things that are super repressed and or like these like dark primal instincts or thoughts or things that are like hidden under the surface and are really dark.
Mhm.
um and I think that you could definitely read this movie that way. in the sense that there's a house and it looks very kept up compared to the surroundings,
Right.
right? Like the whole neighborhood is
It's destroyed.
depressed. Yeah, destroyed basically. And except for that house. And there's this like false sense of safety, right? So in the beginning, Keith is like, "Oh, don't stay in your car because look at the neighborhood. Come into the house because the house looks nice, I guess. But it's actually in the house where the danger lies.
Mm.
And a lot of people, when they think of home, are they traditionally,
It's your
you
safe
think of like
place.
safety,
Yeah.
right? It's your safe place. It's your safe place to be yourself, and you shouldn't have to be afraid. And like you go there to feel safe. But obviously, that's not the case for everyone. And especially in a horror movie, that just the domestic sphere is broken. And if we're talking about basements and dark secrets
It's
and the psyche, right?
direct.
This one has a very, very, very long basement that has cages and different
Which
rooms.
I would
And
assume it's probably underneath almost all of those houses that are
yeah,
destroyed.
yeah, I believe so too. And he just got away with that, right?
Yeah.
And even like going and finding the door, it was like a secret door.
Yeah.
So it kind of like opened this whole big secret thing, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So you can definitely look at it that way.
Well, and also
Yeah.
like kind of thinking about that too, like in the 80s when we're shown, Frank's house, this is his house. It's like this perfect pristine neighborhood and
Yeah.
everyone is watering their lawns and they're going to their jobs and their kids are
Hmm.
playing and no one knows that in the basement of this perfect pristine house all of these horrible
Hmm.
things are happening. So
Right.
you've got that like facade even
Yes.
even then when
Yeah.
the houses around it were good too, like, and there's still this
Hmm.
horrible thing happening under and nobody is the wiser.
Hmm. But I also think like, you know, yeah, I definitely agree.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to expand
Yeah.
on that.
Mm-hmm.
That like, how many other well manicured
Oh
lawns
yeah.
and places like, because in the 50s, like you had like the white picket fence and everybody, well, not everyone, but like this like conformity idea of the family, the nuclear family. But under the surface, you have violence
Yeah, any
and
number of horrible things
yeah,
happening behind those
yeah,
walls that you just don't
yeah,
think to see.
yeah.
And because you're staring at this perfect neighborhood, there's no way, I'm doing air quotes if you're just listening to this, there is no way that anything bad could happen in these perfect, beautiful houses. But you never
Hmm.
know.
Hmm. Yep, yep. And I like that. I like that they touched on a lot of different points
Yeah, I
in Barbarian.
really enjoyed this movie. I feel like my quarrels with it are far lower than the things that I liked about it. and
Yeah,
and I feel like
yeah,
it was very fun to watch. Like, not the
yes.
subject matter, not necessarily, but like the experience of watching it was very
Hmm.
enjoyable. Like there was
Yeah,
it was a pretty long movie, I feel like. I don't exactly remember how long it was. Let me see.
I was so sucked in,
Oh,
like I didn't even
I lied. It's
know.
like an hour and 47 minutes. It's not that long, but like I don't feel like I felt like I was there. Like some movies, there are times where I'm like, all right, come on, let's go. It's gonna take forever.
Are we ending
Like
yet?
David Lynch, I love you, but sometimes there are times where I'm like, all right now. But this movie, I felt like, not that I'm comparing this movie to David Lynch. I don't want anybody to get on my ass about that. But like I felt like this movie the whole time it was like, here we fucking go. And like
Mhm,
I don't often enjoy like current horror films that like
mhm.
cater to the big audiences because I'm different. No. Um just because like usually I feel like they're very shallow and they're like
Mhm.
just trying to capture whatever's popular on social media or whatever. And I just feel like a lot of movies, a lot of horror movies these days kind of give me that vibe where I'm just like, ugh, I don't need to see this. Like, this is just going to be the
Right.
same as every other horror movie that is just like
Hmm.
this, that just came out like 3 years ago. But this one I
Right.
feel like really stood out as like
Mhm.
something like great.
Yeah. Yeah. I think even if you don't like the horror movie logic of it, I feel like it's still like really well done, and it's a wild ride. Like
For sure.
if you just allow yourself to accept the logic
Yeah.
and that it's not going to make sense, it's so much fun. It's
Yeah.
just so much fun.
It's great. And
So,
I feel like the things that don't make sense, like even the things that I thought didn't make sense, you were like, well, what if this? And I'm like, actually, you're right.
yeah.
So, it doesn't, it's a movie.
Mhm. Yep. I'll just explain it away. It's fine.
No, honestly, and it doesn't even need it. Like I said, the things that are like
Mhm.
wrong with it in my mind really don't do anything to harm how good I think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
But yeah. So
So,
that
how would you rate it?
oh
I
gosh,
guess
like
like out of maybe
what?
out of 10? Out
Um
of 10?
huh. I maybe give it like an 8 or a 9, I think. I really had a good time with it. I feel like
Good.
it had a lot of um I think it had a lot of themes and spoke a lot about a lot of things that I care about in a way that didn't feel shoehorned or cringy or whatever. I felt like it
Yeah.
was just like really strong.
Acting phenomenal as
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah,
Very
and was
good.
not taken
Very good.
out by that at all.
Yeah. All good things. Yeah.
What about you?
Cool. I'd probably give it like a 7, 7.5.
Fair.
Um, not like that I disliked it, but you know me and the so we talked about this in our last podcast, but like just the naked woman as being
Oh
like
yeah, that's
the
yeah,
scary
yeah.
element. Like I
True,
know
true.
they're trying to subvert it a little bit, but it's still kind of like
Yeah, we're still in
I,
that
I don't
place.
know how I
That's
feel
true.
about
I
yeah.
didn't really think about that. That makes sense. Very fair.
But everything else like experience in the movie theater 10. Like it was so fun. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the theater and like I don't think you can watch it again because like
Yeah, it's not going to
you
be
know
the
what's going
same
to happen.
experience.
But it's so fun.
Yeah,
It's a
I wanted
great
to go see
wild
it
ride.
again so bad.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I really liked it. I saw it and I was like, you gotta see this.
Yes, I'm really glad that you told me to.
Because
Yep.
we have friends that had seen it and they're like, you need to go see this. This movie is
Mhm.
wild. And we're like, what? And they're like, I can't tell you. You just have to go. I was like, okay, we'll go. We're going.
Yeah. That's like seems to be the consensus of
Yeah,
everyone is like even if it wasn't their favorite, like you just need to experience this movie at
yeah.
least
It
once.
was great. And also it does the thing that I love, which is like let's go back and see why this happened and let's go forward and see why this happened. I eat that shit up like breakfast. I love it. So,
I know you love having things explained
oh,
why.
I love it so much.
For me, like even if they're not explained, I will find
Yeah.
a way
And
to explain.
I don't even care if the explanation makes sense, which is like I like the Saw movies because they're just like nothing makes sense in those movies, but I'm just like, sure. I'll take that. That's fine. If that's what you say happened, sure.
I love it.
But yeah, that's Barbarian.
Speaking of movies in theaters, I really want to go see Smile.
Oh yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that one. I feel like that maybe has the elements that I was talking about that I dislike. But we'll see because I did feel like watching the trailer, I felt like I was watching a trailer for It Follows. I don't know if
Okay,
you felt similar to
interesting.
that.
Okay, we should definitely. So we're gonna talk about It Follows and Teeth. Um, because well, I don't want to
Yeah.
go too into it, but unpopular opinion, I don't like It Follows.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's fair.
I don't like it. Not or at least not as much as other people do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but we'll get into that another time.
Yeah, but
But
I'm
yeah,
interested to see it. I just I'm not as excited about seeing it as these last couple movies that we've seen.
I feel like it's either gonna be, like, really scary or it's gonna be really bad.
Yeah,
But either
or both.
way, I'm here for it could be both. It could be both, and I'm
Yeah,
here
I'm
for it.
open
It's
to
fine.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to watch, you know,
Oh yeah. Bad horror
not
movies are
great
just as
movies
good.
too.
Just as good.
Like, have you ever sat in bed and you're like, "Oh, I wanna put on, like a 7-star movie or, like, a 3-star," or, like, something that's, like, not great?
Mhm.
I don't know, sometimes I just get into these moods where I'm like, "I don't wanna think too much, and I just kinda
Yeah.
wanna have something
Just
on."
watch this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So that's that.
Alright.
Let's do
Yeah.
some plugs, I guess. If you want to catch this live, we have a Discord server where we're doing this live right at this very second. So if you want to
Spooky.
join that, just hit up our Instagram. The link's in there. I think I have it in the YouTube description. Not positive. But if you just want to listen to the audio version, or if you already are, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon Music. I usually try to edit it as soon as I can. Sometimes that's the day after, sometimes it's a week after, but we're working on it.
It's fine.
But you can
Yep.
follow us on Instagram at pinup.pumpkins. Follow our YouTube channel, Pinup Pumpkins Podcast, I believe. And then we're Pinup Pumpkins Horror Podcast, I'm pretty sure, on Spotify and Apple Music.
Yep.
Yup.
Yep.
That's the first time I've done that. I felt pretty good.
Yay.
But yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so stay spooky, everyone, and we will
Yes.
see you next time.
Stay spooky. Bye.
Cue the music.
Yeah.
Bye.